So after all of what I call the capping for PlayStation has been done and the barrage of attacks against Xbox has pretty much been unveiled to have been in a maybe slightly conspiratorial way, maybe coordinated, we can now ask the fundamental question: where are the games? If you're a PlayStation user and you bought the PlayStation to play PlayStation games, by now you must have exhausted most of those games, if not all of them. So, in the coming few years, knowing that PlayStation is going ahead to cancel these live service games, I have to ask a very important question: what games are you going to play? The reality of the issue is, I see the Xbox gamers side of things because I know you're going to say, well, we're going to play Xbox games. Of course, right? But these last few days have been really unveiling because we have now seen from the internal workings that PlayStation, right now, with a lot of its approach to trying to get live service going, is in shambles. This usually happens to many different publishers when they try this approach in a way that is not concerted to give value to the customer. Warner Brothers found themselves in this situation with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and even with their Mortal Kombat 1 game, where they launched the game basically quarter baked. They didn't finish the job. They had modes in the game that didn't come out till about a year. And so you can see stuff like that. And even with Concord, game was not resonating with the audience that they tried to find out there that doesn't exist, and all of these things. And inside of all of that, some of the PlayStation hyper fanboys, instead of focusing on, okay, how can we set up criticism or at least see areas where PlayStation needs to improve, they are in a sense running interference for reality. One example is Reforge. Reforge made a video saying that PlayStation's lack of first-party games, he concluded, was because they had saturated the market and could just kick back and relax and allow for their studios to basically insert all the quality that they want in these games. Come to find out that one of the games he was talking about was the one being developed by Ben Studios and has now been canceled, as well as others. So apparently, all that talk about PlayStation just kicking back and relaxing has just been fugazi. Another PlayStation aficionado, Dreamcast guy, also came and said the cancellation of the live service games is a good thing. Apparently, them not going ahead to basically bring out games that they've already invested money in making is actually good. In case you didn't necessarily understand what I just said, we have had now two talking heads in this particular category say that everything that PlayStation has been going through, showing that there's been maybe misdirection, mismanagement, lack of focus, are good things. Whereas in the interim, when Xbox is taking an initiative to be pro-consumer, bringing things like Xbox, it's a bad thing. It's not good for the industry. It ruins the industry. It kills devs, blah, 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 and all of the above. And as someone who's not even an Xbox fan, when I talk about these things, I see the way people treat, or approach or address what I say, or in some cases, they will hop over reality and try to start forming their own frame of mind. Something that was very interesting yesterday was two conversations that I got into yesterday. One of them was very interesting. The other one, I think the audience member and I were probably on a very different frequency or the same frequency. We just didn't know it. This individual was talking about, responding to Deadly Hadley. They said Microsoft will get rid of Xbox after they squeeze the most out of their catalog. Halo, Gears, Forza, all games are releasing on PlayStation. After this, Amazon will be the one to acquire Xbox, and the rumored Xbox Prime handheld makes perfect sense. Keep in mind that this is actually put on a post that Deadly Hadley said Sony should publish Helldivers 2 on Xbox. In fact, the reason I actually even saw this notification was because I actually quote tweeted it and replied and said, or maybe they should sell the publishing rights to Arrowhead Studios. Y'all know that is their strategy, right? That's how they're going to basically channel their games to Xbox because they've already done 3 of them. They've done Predator Hunting Grounds, they've done MLB The Show, and they've also done Death Stranding. So I'm not going to be surprised if we see other titles make their way. Even though Sea of Thieves, people thought it was a, lost cause, it still did well on PlayStation. So I don't see PlayStation writing that check and going, there's no way we can make more money on Helldivers because, we won't let the rest of the world actually buy that game. So I guess Xbox can probably help us with more money there if they choose. Now, I replied and said, give it 3 years. All this as PlayStation has sold 2 publishing rights, 2 games to be published in Xbox the last year, and one of their developed games has day one Game Pass. And they called me slow. They said you're too slow. If you haven't noticed all these years, like I always say, Xbox fans are a decade behind along Xbox. Well, the reality is, I think we've finally come to realize that it's the PlayStation fans that have basically been fooling themselves. Because in reality, your ship is burning. It's insane. It's quite weird that anybody would actually go ahead and take these folks seriously in this conversation. When in reality, gaming right now has reached a saturation point that even though PlayStation were to dump all these live service games out there, even if they had all launched, many of them would have bombed. It would have been even worse in terms of the hemorrhaging and in terms of the bleeding. And it brings me back to the question, if you're a PlayStation fan, what games are you going to play? You should be fortunate enough, if you're interested in Xbox games, that they are interested in bringing some to you. Because let me tell you, with the attitude a lot of these PlayStation fans have had these last few years, especially this console generation, I am of the mind where I almost want to side with some of the Xbox fans who say that none of these games should ever touch your platform. But I have to remove the emotional side of it, because from the business side, it does make sense for Xbox to go into your territory and sell you games, because you will now fund Game Pass for the Xbox player. And if it wasn't for that particular move in terms of chess, I would have said that maybe Xbox moving its games to another platform was a mistake. I know some Xbox players see it as that, but you have to look at the big picture. In a chess game, you have to think multiple moves ahead. You see, a lot of these PlayStation fans, having basically capped for so long, are now going to make Doom Dark Ages Part 3 a reality, because they're going to buy it in droves. And guess what? There's not going to be first-party competition against these Xbox games. They are going to roam free and swim happy inside of the PlayStation Store, where nothing from PlayStation at this moment in time is going to bother them. I think this is exactly where I've been making all of these particular comments, saying that the first-party presence of Xbox is nowhere near anything that PlayStation would ever dream to come close. Add that to the third-party partnerships that are actually a thing, and I strongly believe that there is just no way anybody can say right now that PlayStation in a content piece or in a content segment is nowhere going to be able to catch up to this. Because Xbox, when they decided that they were going to go this route, a lot of people framed and fomented that this was because they were giving up on the console business, which has always been a lie from the pits of hell. But you know, people are very gullible, and gullible enough to go ahead and think that they can just basically, take anything that somebody says and take their word for it, when in reality, a lot of these people, all they hold towards Xbox is malice, pure malice. But now the reality is starting to dawn and things are starting to set in. I think one thing about Game Pass that a lot of people haven't realized is, with the Activision thing, bringing the new games have always been a very interesting piece of the puzzle. It also has stood as a threat to PlayStation. PlayStation understood that they had no way to respond to this. And so it brings even this PlayStation document that we've been talking about and pointing to from 2023, when Insomniac got hacked, into a better and a much more contextual light. Because if it wasn't for this particular document, I don't think a lot of people would have been able to put into a frame of mind how impactful the Activision acquisition was and how possible Game Pass was to basically go ahead and overtake PlayStation's market. If you're on the Xbox side, you have the better deal. PlayStation right now needs to figure out where the heck it's going, because to be very honest, ladies and gentlemen, I think that they may be lost at this moment in time, because taking all of those resources and trying to put them in their live service games, while also at the same time, instead of focusing on its own studios, was basically engaging in money hatting of third-party games, which has then now taken more resources away from them, has now put them in a really strange place. So I ask again, if you're on the PlayStation side, what games are you going to play? You bought this console generation for a reason. Some of you bought the mid-gen refresh for a reason. What games are you going to play with this mid-gen refresh that you went ahead and got? What games are you going to play with the $1,000 PlayStation 30th edition console that you went ahead and bought? I think this has basically allowed for us to pretty much realize that content is the most important thing in the gaming industry. It always has been. I mean, people have always talked about the PlayStation platform like it had this unique aspect to it, when in reality, it was always the content that PlayStation either put out or captured in terms of money having that, in a sense, drew people to it. However, now there's content everywhere. And I see Xbox taking what I think is a market share from PlayStation that they hadn't necessarily dreamed would ever leave them. Activision was just a start. This is death by 1,000 cuts. The economy is not letting up. Cost of development is not letting up. And just so many things are working right now against PlayStation. Things that we've been warning for the longest time, by the way, have been working against them. But some people chose to remain blind to this reality. And now all of that has come to roost. So I ask again, PlayStation fans, what game are you going to play? What game did you buy this PlayStation 5 console to play? Most of them were on PS4. Many of them coming out on PS5 haven't necessarily met their sales targets, or at least been satisfactory enough that they're going to PC. And then Xbox now has content bleeding out their ears that almost every quarter they're going to be launching one, or in some cases 2 games for at least this year and next year. Now, I mean, we've seen the roadmap. That's all we have. Not saying this is going to be perpetually the case, but if at any rate, even half of this particular release cadence is the case, I think PlayStation is fried from a content perspective. All that's going to be left for them is just the name, the talk, the hype, and the fandom that will not necessarily embrace reality. And PlayStation basically for now is needing to put games forward, because that's the foot that they put forward in introducing their brand and pulling people into their ecosystem. If they don't have that, they're going to be in a really precarious position. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Talk to me. I'd love to interact about this, because this is not something that you make as a claim with ease. You have to, this is dire for PlayStation. And believe you me, I'm one of the least people that wants to see PlayStation in a dire situation. Why? As much as they may have, in a sense, not provided enough value for customers, we need them in the gaming space to keep and temper Microsoft from overtaking this particular, aspect of the console space. Peace out.